Welcome back to Bazball FPL. Game week 30 has been brutal. I've dropped from around 4.6k to just inside the top 16k, scoring just 39 points, easily my worst week of the season. The big question now is whether to panic or stick with the plan, especially with Haaland dilemma this week and blanks coming thick and fast. So to quickly recap, and I know that it's been a little time in between drinks with FA Cup over the weekend, but a huge red arrow. My transfer also didn't work. I made the transfer of Mark Yu, that's been a dead spot within my team for about 10, 12 game weeks, to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I thought at home to Sunderland would have a good fixture, but he blanked. But look, if you have a look at my 39 points, and then the percentage drop that I got over this game week, easily the worst of the season, and a lot of it was also down to the fact that the two that returned in Gabriel with 11 and Bruno at 8 around my rank are essentially at 100% effective ownership, which means that I didn't gain anything from them returning. But a Guehi 1, a Virgil 1 and a Kanate 2 were the ones that I think were the most disappointing given the fixtures. And the rest of the team delivered minimal returns, as you can see. Shada with a clean sheet, and Rice with a clean sheet, but that was the only other real returns, which aren't necessarily returns. So definitely one of the worst weeks of the season. It's one of those weeks everything just sort of ticks along at those 2-pointers, and you just don't know when your next return is coming from, and nothing really lands, and that was definitely the case. So look, the current squad situation, if I go into the team for this week, is the fact that, look, the only real issue at the moment that I see with this team is Harry Wilson that is yellow flagged, but at the same time I don't even really see that as an issue at the moment, given the subs that we've gotten. I honestly just have a sneaky suspicion, don't have any inside information myself, but I think Harry Wilson will be fine to play, and again, he has been my best asset that I've owned this season in regards to not only points, but also not many people had him early on. A lot of people are going to look to have him with Nottingham Forest and Burnley in the next two. However, he's been so good up until this point, and I hope that he can get back on the park because his returns have been really strong. Look, if I didn't have to wildcard, if you have a look at my bench, it is such a strong case for a bench boost, or would be such a strong case for a bench boost. However, I have come this far with the fact that I'm probably going to wildcard in 32, which I'll touch on in a second. But the squad looks good across all 15. And look, I'm still having some benching decisions and headaches with whether I try and sneak Calvert-Lewin into the starting lineup, because I don't think Crystal Palace are that good at the moment. Additionally, whether I really want to take that risk on the double Liverpool defence. I know it is Spurs at home and Spurs are in the mud. However, do I diversify and try and go like a Guehi to try and sort of separate the double Liverpool defence? But I did bring Kanate in for a reason a couple of weeks ago, so I sort of feel like I just got to live and die by the sword in that sense. I do have two free transfers, and I'm looking to roll this week. I don't really want to make any changes. I don't need to make any changes. Again, trying to preserve that flexibility after 32. You never know what's going to happen towards the end of the season. Injuries, with doubles and blanks that we're not sure of in sort of 35 and 36, with potential further game weeks and fixtures being moved there. I still think that people are not underestimating, but people will need that flexibility in regards to having transfers up the sleeve. So I'm sort of avoiding sideways moves, and that will sort of allude to one of the other players, very prominent players, in which we will sort of speak to in the moment. But I'm very tempted to just bank transfers, and I think most people are going to do the same. I don't feel the need to do anything. Game week 31 plan hasn't changed. I think everyone's going to be dead ending into 31, and sort of accept that some players are benching and blanking. At the moment, I've got Haaland benched, Rice benched, and Gabriel benched, and potentially also Guehi benched as well. So we'll be able to feed or field, should I say, a team at this point in time. But sort of, again, if I do need to make a transfer or two around 31, then that's just something that I've sort of been rolling these transfers for. The plan is still to wildcard in 32. I know after these FA Cup fixtures that a lot of people were mentioning wildcarding in, I think it was 35 or 36. I'm still going very template in regards to wildcarding in 32. I will be transparent in saying that my focus is more on winning my mini league due to monetary reasons, as opposed to trying to chase the highest rank that I possibly can. So depending on what happens over the next sort of 1 to 2 game weeks, I probably just will try and fend off, as I'm 50 points ahead of those who are coming second. I'm probably just going to try and not necessarily limp, but play it quite strategic and template towards the end of the season and take minimal risks, which I feel like if I play quite template, then other people are going to have to take even more extended risk in order to sort of chase me down. So that's sort of my thinking at the moment. Look, the big one at the moment, and something that I'll be very interested to see after deadline, is the Haaland decision, and it's a major debate this week. I'd be very tempted to sell Haaland if I didn't have a triple Liverpool. And what I mean by that is if I hadn't brought in Kanate, I would be very tempted to go Virgil, Wirtz and Hugo this week. Against Tottenham, I think there would be a very good opportunity, although we are playing terribly at the moment, to see some pretty substantial returns. Haaland has been extremely disappointing over the last sort of 6 to 8 game weeks, and not only has the returns not been there, but the underlying data has been pretty horrific as well. I think over the last sort of 6 to 8 game weeks, I think he's averaging 0.23 goal involvements per game, which is essentially saying that he's going to score 1 in every 4 or 5 games, which is extremely unlike the Haaland that we know. So look, for reasons mentioned, I'm not going to be looking to sell Haaland, but I can understand why some people would. My reasoning is I don't want to burn a transfer, and I feel like it's, again, a bit of a sideways move. And the fact that I've got triple Liverpool, and I am probably going to continue to avoid João Pedro, which will probably come back to haunt me also. Transfer thoughts in regards to, I guess I am rolling, but if in regards to people that you could be potentially be looking at, it's sort of the cheaper ones at the moment that are really the ones that I think people are looking at. Like your Hill of Bournemouth is still a really great pickup, and Senesi if you want to go a little bit more expensive. Outside of that, no one's really touching any sort of City, Arsenal, or Crystal Palace. And I don't think the likes of someone like Tarkovsky have great fixtures either. I know that some people have been throwing around Malik Chow. I would probably side on not going there, but he's proved me wrong all season. Semenyo, very hard to when he blanks in 31 also. And then a lot of people are sorted, and just quietly, what about Elliot Anderson? He's just, for a 5.5 million defender, I guess he's sort of similar to Wilson in regards to the price of your squad hasn't really been a factor this year, just due to there being so many good cheap options, and Elliot Anderson starts on 4 points every game. It's just whether he goes on to get some sort of attacking return. So sort of from just ticking over, like he's the perfect sort of player that you want in your side. Even like your Garners and stuff as well, 5.2 million. And do we need to mention Dewsbury Hall? If he hadn't missed those games with an ankle injury, I'm sure that he would be right up here too. And then forwards, I think that's probably where you're going to see the biggest movement is, you João Pedros of the world. Not great fixtures, but just have a look. 19, 2, 7, 10, 8, 10, 12, 8. Like, that is just incredible. And then you look at Hugo again, a bit probably underwhelming in 2, 15, 2, 2, 2, 13, 1, 2, 0, 0. Didn't play minutes there, but if we're basing it off this, he's probably due for a haul. And then again, if you just have a look at fixtures as well, we're looking at Tottenham, Brighton, Fulham. So some pretty good upcoming fixtures as well. Lastly, to touch on captaincy, I think that there is only two. Well, when I say there's multiple options, but there's only two in which I'm considering at the moment, which is Haaland and Bruno. I don't know. I can't give you an answer. At the moment, I'm probably leaning towards Bruno, even though I have the captaincy on Haaland. Reason being is because Bruno's going to play 90 minutes. They're not in any other competitions. Haaland has Real Madrid on again next week, and they've got a 3-goal deficit that they've got to try and make up, which I'm sure Pep is going to try his best to ensure that happens. And unfortunately, because we don't know if City could be still with a 3-goal deficit 70 minutes into the game, and that's where you might see Haaland come off. But if City score early, then Haaland's going to be playing 90 there. So I don't know if City get up early against West Ham, then Haaland gets subbed, and if he isn't a part of those goals, then another blank for him. So that was a very long-winded way of saying that I'm leaning on the side of Bruno, especially being on pens as well helps. I know Haaland's on pens, but what I'm more saying is that I would consider potentially a Wirtz, Schade, or Thiago as well. But again, sort of siding on the fact that we were speaking about before, I'm more looking at winning the mini league and probably playing a little bit more template. But to be fair, every time I've tried to play template this year, it sort of hasn't really worked out for me. And when I've gone against the grain for the likes of Virgil and keeping him, and going the likes of Wilson and Schade and Guehi, etc., those picks have seemed to work out for me. So, look, final thoughts is I plan to roll at the moment, hold Haaland for sure, and start positioning for a blank 31 and wildcard in 32. Would love any engagement for any of you who have made it this far. Please don't hesitate to lean on me and leverage me for any questions or comments that you may have. But as always, good luck, and I will see you soon.